All right, friends, Pastor Zach here, and I'm here with the fourth commandment, which is a good one, the one about the Sabbath. And it's significant because this is the first four commandments have to do with our love for God, our relationship with Him, and the last six have to do with our love for man. And so I want to take a moment to pause and reflect over this key distinction regarding the first four commandments having to do with God's love for God, and the last six having to do with love for man. Now, I'm in this Ten Commandments series. If you haven't listened to the other three, you're gonna want to, because it'll really help inform this last one. This one's kind of the crux of all the first four. Some religious leaders came to Jesus and said, "Hey, which of the Ten Commandments are the most important? Tell us." And so Jesus responds and tells them, "You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and all of your mind. This is the first and greatest. And the second's like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets." So really, Jesus is saying, first four have to do with supreme love for God. The last six have to do with love for man. And so I think God's teaching a really important lesson here, one that we emphasize with the first commandment, and that is there's an order of priority with who we love that affects how we love. I'm going to say that again. There is an order of priority with who we love that affects how we love. And when those orders go awry, our love for everyone else is kind of it doesn't go the way it's supposed to be, right? I used to think to myself that I truly loved myself when I was selfish, gratifying my own desires, but that was actually selfishness, and I was only hurting myself and hurting others in the process. But when I learned to love God supremely, not only did I have develop more love for myself and respect for myself, but I developed an even greater respect for others. So the order of love goes God and then mankind. And it's important to make this distinction, especially in a culture that is obsessed with self-love. Self-love is really important, but self-love will never fulfill. It'll never truly give us the desires of our hearts. And it'll actually won't always even teach us of how to love other people, because maybe other people need to be loved in ways that only God can love them. And maybe we don't even know how to be loved. Maybe the ways we're looking for love in all the wrong places, but God knows exactly what we need. So when we put God first, it helps reorder everything. It's kind of like that question. What comes first? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Do we wait to love others and do we until we can really love ourselves? Or yeah, do we learn to love ourselves in order that we might learn to love others? The correct answer is we put God first, and that'll help us to be able to take care of the rest. One time I had this student come up to me and they're like, "Hey, so you believe in this God thing, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty serious about it." And they had a question for me. And they said, "What kind of God would tell someone to hate their own family?" They go, "My mom told me that God says," and she quoted Luke 14:26, "if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father or mother and wife and children, they cannot be my disciple." I was taken back by that. That really impacted me. And that's a hard verse. You know, right off the bat, I told her I don't think that's what Jesus is saying here. In First John, it says everyone who hates his brother is a murderer. I explain that Jesus often speaks in hyperboles, these exaggerated statements to get points across. Like when it comes to temptation with lust, he says, if your foot causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. If your eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It's better to enter into an eternal life, missing a limb, missing an eye, than to suffer eternal hellfire. So what Jesus was doing is emphasizing the seriousness of the nature of sin and how seriously it needs to be addressed. So when he was telling us to, hate brother, sister, mother, wife, children, daughter. He's not saying we're supposed to hate them because anyone who hates someone is a murderer. He's basically saying we are supposed to love God. It's the reprioritization of love. We're supposed to put love for God first. And as a matter of fact, love for God first then helps us to love everyone else. So God was not telling this mother to neglect her family, to hate her own daughter and son for the sake of the church and sake for God. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, love for God should actually make them a better mother and help them to love their family better. Let me say this, church family. When I fell in love with God and I learned to put him first, I learned to love my family great. It was not in putting myself first. Sometimes we put our family first and we put our loved ones first, and all of that's not necessarily sometimes what they need. We need God, and we need God to show us how we're supposed to love those who He has entrusted to us. So loving Him first helps us to reprioritize those things. So what does any of this have to do with the fourth commandment? Well, the fourth commandment is the ultimate test of love for God. It's the ultimate test of love for God. Let's take a look at it. Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11 says this. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it do no work. You, your son, your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, your livestock, or even the sojourner who's within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and He rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Now we can go back to Genesis chapter 2 and reflect on what made it holy. You can read through the creation week, and what sets the Sabbath day apart is not the special blessing that God pronounces on it, but it's the fact that He rests on it. And I think the emphasis of rest means that God is there to enjoy His creation. He's not out there just creating, creating, creating. It means everything that God created was perfect. God didn't need to create any more. What He had set in stone was great. And so He enjoyed it, and that He enjoyed it by resting with His creation. So God didn't rest because He was exhausted. He rested because He wanted to enjoy His creation. So really, the fourth commandment is the only commandment with a call to remember. It's a commandment with a call to remember God, and to recall our relationship with Him. The way I like to explain it I used to explain it to my students when I was at Thunderbird Academy was, let me see, I'm pulling up the commandment here, was that it's almost like an anniversary date. Almost like an anniversary date when um, we are called to remember a very important date. And I think it's interesting that the two institutions that God preserves from the beginning of creation are marriage and Sabbath. Love for God, love for man. Come on, church family. God knows what He is doing here. And love for man, or love for God, is supreme. So to remember the Sabbath day is a call to remember that beautiful experience that we had with God in Eden. It's almost like God is saying you could still have that today. It's like when a couple gets married, you celebrate the anniversary because you want to recall those experiences. By remembering those experiences and recalling, you are recreating that first love. What does God tell? What is it? The church of Ephesus? He says, "This one thing I have against you. You have forgotten your first love. Don't lose that fervor. Don't lose." God is trying to keep the love alive. And the fourth commandment is the ultimate test of that. To remember it is to keep it. So the fourth commandment has more to do then with just not working, and not breaking the Sabbath, by not working. But what it has to do more so with is trusting God with our lives. You can read Exodus chapter 16. When God was moving Israel out of Egypt, they began moaning and complaining and grumbling in the wilderness, saying they missed the food of Egypt, they missed the flesh pots and all the bread and everything that was in Egypt. And so the Bible says that God gave them the test, and He used the Sabbath in Exodus 16. Verse 4, He says, "Look it, I'm going to rain bread down from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I might test them whether they will walk in my law or not." The Sabbath ultimately is a test of trust. It's the ultimate, it's one of the ultimate ways in which we express our love by God, by honoring Him and remembering Him on this day. It shows us that we trust Him, that we put Him first above our finances, that by putting Him first, we are reprioritizing everything, and we're showing Him we love Him so He can help us to be able to love those people who are important to Him. God will show us how be able to take care of others by putting Him supremely. So I end with that for the fourth commandment. It's a call to trust God ultimately, which is the call to love God. If we love Him, we'll trust Him. And that seventh command, or the fourth commandment, is exactly that. It's a call to trust that God will provide for each of our needs, just like He did for Israel in the wilderness. They had no way to gather food, so He miraculously rained down upon them enough food to care for them and to be there and to support them. So, Let us be able to trust God by keeping the Sabbath holy.